Hey guys, this is Tom Box, and check out my new chair. You're here for one reason. You don't want to lose to Tenpai Dragon this weekend. Lucky for you, it's pretty easy. And I'm gonna give it to you like you're copying homework like we're back in high school. All that I'm asking in return is that you hit that like button, hit subscribe, and ding that notification bell. And you know what? Let's look into how to beat Tenpai Dragon. Let's get ourselves up to speed with the playstyle, starting off with the intention. Of course, they just want to OTK for the most part. And what does the deck have to offer? Sangan Summoning, the field spell, Miscellaneous Force as a field spell for fire dragons. Main phase 1, basically immune, but if you can clear the field spell and then play your regular cards, the deck is actually pretty fragile before they can get into the battle phase. If you can just cripple them during the main phase because they couldn't get the field spell up, then you should be pretty safe. Then there's also the battle phase lines. This is where the deck really shines, because in terms of what they can do in the battle phase, in terms of how they synchro summon, it's just pretty wild. There's so many different lines, but you can gauge your danger based off of how many monsters on the field plus Chandra. If it's just Chandra itself is like 3 danger levels. If there's Chandra plus something, 4 danger levels, because they can probably break through 2 different things along the way as long as they have Chandra, Pydra, or Chandra Fadra. But if they have Chandra Fadra plus Sangan Kaiman, just consider yourself most likely not going to survive that battle phase. It doesn't even matter if they activate Pot of Prosperity. They have ways to get the Trident Dragon. They can even not use Trident Dragon and still get the OTK. And if they have, say, all of that plus another monster, say like they activate a Bestial for instance, then it's even worse. You're definitely going to lose. Now, I don't think you're going to survive it, because if they get Field Spell plus a 6, that means the Chandra that they normal summon is going to turn into the Sangenpai Transcendent Dragon, and it's immune to everything because of the field spell. And in the battle phase, you can't activate anything. So they basically control the entire game. Unplug your controller, have fun. Right, it's pretty rough. But their best monster likely is going to be Sangenpai Biden Dragon. It's the 7. It summons itself out of the graveyard when you've already declared 3 battles. But here's the other thing. On summon, it already generates another monster by bringing another monster back. And then it can summon itself back and as a synchro material and help climb into your tent. So this monster alone deals 5600 damage just by itself, and then can just climb into higher. So this is the danger of the deck, hands down. If they summon Transcendent Dragon, you're probably going to lose anyway because you let them get that far. So here's some quick tips about this particular deck. Starting with the die roll itself, they like to go second. They like to blind second. If they can blind second, it's great for them. So they want you to win the die roll. They're going to pretend that, oh no, I lost the die roll. And then you decide to build a board, and they go droplet, and then they get your whole board, and then they summon a, Chandra, Pydra, all that stuff, and then they OTK you. Not very fun. Okay, I completely understand that. And so, yeah, winning the die roll, if they choose to go second, just prepare yourself that, hey, this probably could be a Tenpai matchup. It's pretty rough for the most part. And then in the battle phase, they outspeed you. Don't use single target effects most of the time. During my first week playing this deck, I ran into triple Widow Anchor, and it did not matter. Alright, the Widow Anchor only matters if, there's no field spell. You can just negate everything ahead of time, and then it's good. But if they go into like battle phase and then you try to do the same Widow Anchor play, it's not going to work. They're going to chain on every single play you make, and then because these cards are not hard once per turn on the ability to perform a synchro summon, you're just going to basically eat a full end board anyway. They might miss a couple of attacks, sure. They might miss the early damage, which is like the weakest damage, but all the hard hitting damages are still going to come through, not to mention that you're going to get locked out. And they also have a synchro toolbox, Black Rose, to wipe the entire board, Samurai Destroyer to take care of anything that's indestructible by battle, and keep those cards negated. That's also very key. And then Time Lord Progenitor Vorp Gate to help, mass board wipe. And even that half damage won't really matter. They OTK you through Prosperity. You think they can't OTK you through like Vorp Gate? Think again. Okay, so let's beat them. Looking at first, hand traps. Ash Blossom and Joy Spring. The one hand trap that we all have. I think we have to come back into playing this. Luckily for us, there isn't like a lot of hand traps you can use against the deck, but most of them are actually very effective. That's the best part. For a deck that only does like simple things work against them as well. First of all, Sangan Kaiman. This is essentially the priority hit, especially in the battle phase. If you can stop this card, you probably should win the game, because you can block the summon of Chandra ideally, and without Chandra, you don't have to deal with a big problem. And any follow-up such as Fadra is also a very big problem, so you don't want to let any of the monsters come out, especially in the battle phase, because it's a add to hand plus summon. And then you can also consider stopping Sangen Summoning and Pydra. Now, this is not exactly ideal, but sometimes you're just forced to do it because there's just too much stuff coming out after the fact. Now, this can be a bait play for Triple Tactics Talent or Triple Tactics Thrust, but if the first summon is without the field spell, then ideally you should probably Ash Blossom that card. Now, for Sangen Summoning, if they go for Sangen Summoning first, and then the first card they search is Pydra, then you don't really have too much to worry about. But if they go Sangen Summoning and you don't know what happened, and you let it go through, and it's like a Chundra, then you're probably gonna get OTK'd for the most part, because here's what they want to do. They want to summon out Chundra, normal summon, and they go to battle phase. They declare the attack, summon out Pydra during the damage step. Damage step Pydra, you can't Ash it anymore, then they get Sangen Kaiman, and they can kind of play their way up from there. So at the very least, they can go to Trident Dragon and deal massive damage. But you can hold Ash Blossom just so that they can't activate the Sangen Kaiman, and that should do, maybe enough, but that as a one hand trap option, that's not too bad. And then there's also Heretic Seal of Heavenly Spirits. If they went first and they tribute off and they want to summon back the Fadra, the key thing here is you can block the Fadra summon so that the board remains empty for you, and you can still play through that. Otherwise, there's a big problem if the field spell is up and Heretic Seal is on the field. That means the Fadra on the field is basically unaffected during the main phase, and then in the battle phase it cannot be destroyed by battle. It gets a little bit dicey. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit can hit 2 cards in the deck, Sangen Summoning and Trident Dragon, and both of these are situational. Sangen Summoning, you require them to activate the card. If they choose not to activate the card, they already have everything. You're still probably going to hold on to that Ghost Ogre and really just do nothing. And then there's Trident Dragon. This only works if they have no Meteor Burst on the field or Transcendent Dragon. Transcendent Dragon, a little bit harder because that means they have to have open pretty hardcore into making this board. But again, not likely to happen in every scenario. You can probably force them into multiple disruption, making them go into their synchros early and shorting themselves maybe a couple of monsters. That's one way you can do it to the Trident Dragon. And when you do the Trident Dragon activate, pop the field spell to do the massive damage, you can be like, oh, Ghost Ogre, Snow Rabbit, kill your Trident Dragon, and boom, you don't have to deal with it anymore. Now, there is one more monster I don't recommend really hitting because they're still going to do a massive ton of damage, but if there are no non-tuners on the field, then you can probably attempt to pop the Sangenpai Biden Dragon, because they're gonna try to special summon back a non-tuner out of the graveyard. This only works if they've already burned the Sangen Kaiman. Okay, if they burn the Sangen Kaiman, then you can do it. Otherwise, you're probably still gonna get OTK'd, so there's that. Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. This is only for 2 cards. It's for Tenpai Dragon Fadra. It's for Sangenpai Biden Dragon. Those are the only 2 cards. And maybe you can use it to hit Bestial Magnamut. I think that's it. There's not really much more to hit. Fadra is pretty good because you can even hit it during the damage step, and that can help mitigate some of the monsters being brought back. And if there's still 3 monsters on the field, you're likely going to get OTK'd anyway, but, at least they're not answering all the cards on your board. So if you have a full board, then minimizing this could be useful. I think another option that is probably a little bit better is blocking Sangenpai Biden Dragon from summoning back from the graveyard. Sure, it can summon itself back, but if it can do that, that means you didn't really stop it to begin with, and they probably still have enough to go for another Synchro 10. But in the case that it tries to revive a monster and the only monster left on the field is a tuner, which shouldn't be the case because you've burned the tuner, then blocking it from summoning back, say, a Fadra, for instance, that should kind of end the turn. They are going to be stuck with the 7 and not going to be able to push. But this has to be based off of a good judgment on the scenario. So what about Veiler? What about Imperm? Well, all of the Tenpai Dragons, Chundra, Pydra, Fadra, note that it's very difficult to negate with the field spell, but if there are no field spell, hit the Pydra if that's the first normal summon. Even if there's a Biden Dragon summoning back a monster, you should be attempting to hit those as well so that they don't get their monsters back. However, it's gonna be hard to do so if they already have an additional copy of Fadra on the field, or if they have another copy of Paidra, because they're likely just going to chain away the card. But for the most part, if you can land Valor or Imperm, hit the baby dragons before they go into the extra deck, that's probably where we're going to find the most success stopping people from making their play. If the opening play is a blank play, like a Chandra and enter battle phase, just negate the Chandra beforehand, or negate the Chandra at the start of the battle phase, so that there's like nothing effective for them, especially for a solo dragon. Then Imperm is really good. Valor is not going to be as effective because Valor is always going to be stuck under that main phase 1, so that's a big limitation. Some people tend to kind of side out a few copies because it's just not maximum efficiency, and you're basing your play on, you know, a situational play, so it's not very good. Biden Dragon should be something that you should try to hit, but only works if you have 2 hand traps in the battle phase. So you can attempt to stop the Biden Dragon and then use a second hand trap to stop the thing from synchroing it away, so that, you know, it can't escape you, for instance, and now they're stuck on the board. So just be very careful on this. And yeah, you need to remove the fields, but otherwise these cards are just completely useless. But hand traps are okay, but let's look into some real tech options. So, number 1 is going to be no response board clearing. Super Polymerization. In the battle phase, use Super Poly, go into Garura. That's going to basically stop the entire play because it removes the Chandra, and if it removes the Fadra along the way, and they don't have Sangan Kaiman, you should be okay. They're going to survive. They're not going to be able to do damage, and if they pass turn, they pass turn. If they don't pass turn and they have Sangan Kaiman, that means they're only working off with 1 Chandra, which if they already go into Paidra, they can't really do much. They're not likely going to go into Paidra, because they're probably going to go into Fadra, and then they use that to revive cards anyway. And you might be still in for a pickle if that's the case, but if you have Ash Blossom to follow up, then it's a good game for that entire turn. Then there's Forbidden Droplet. One of the best things about Droplet is that you can activate this during the damage step, so you wait for the activation of the Chandra, stop it in, you know, mid-damage step. Wait for your opponent to ram their monster in and make sure that their monster does get destroyed by battle in that case, and then that's good to go. You're good to kind of get your turn back because they can't synchro, because they can't activate their effects now, because they're negated through your droplet. And try to negate as much as possible on the board. But just be careful. Pay attention to Sangan Kaiman, because Sangan Kaiman is always going to be that one card. It's like your Psychic deck having an E-Telly, all of a sudden you're dealing with a full punk board. Same idea. And if you're going to be dealing against your opponent, if you're playing, say, a mirror match, Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon can hold the board because they don't have any of their battle phase effects, so that limits them down to very little. However, they can probably do stuff in the main phase, so you can't just keep Meteor Burst alone on the field. If it is a mirror match, likely they're gonna start synchroing in the main phase, and once they start synchroing in the main phase, it's probably gonna go into Tenpai Biden Dragon, and that's gonna revive the Chandra, run over the Meteor Burst, and start attacking through you. Just putting that out there. Alternatively, if you're going to be going first, you can do a lot of summon blocking against the deck. It is a synchro-based deck, so D-Barrier is kind of rotating back into play. I mean, against Voiceless Voice, you can stop Rituals. Against this deck, you can stop, you know, all of the synchros. Against Branded, you can stop all the fusions. You know, there's a lot of options when it comes to summon blocking, where D-Barrier, I think it's kind of becoming a little bit more popular. Another option's got to be deck lockdown. I think this one's pretty rough. It does stop them from doing most of their plays. There's no Chandra, there's no Sangan summoning, no Kaiman they can't add, no Paidra add. These all hurt, but the deck does main deck Lightning Storm and Feather Duster, so you're just kind of banking that they don't have that. Then there's also Black Goat Laughs. Just stop the summoning of Chandra. You can even use Prohibition. I've seen some of the OCGs play Prohibition, and you can just call Chandra, and they can't summon it. They can't use it as material. They're just kind of locked out with the card. Yeah, so it's a little bit ridiculous that you can just lock out an entire card just with one particular play. And yeah, Chandra is just so pivotal in the entire deck. I don't know how it would even operate without it. It's one of the most free summons of the deck and generates more monsters. Graveyard Disruption, sometimes you just have these in your extra deck, such as Ghost Bell. I think we already talked about Ghost Bell. So DD Crow, you can use it to get rid of the Sanganpai Biden Dragon target. You can even get rid of the thing itself on activation. You can help prevent yourself from getting OTK'd, which is quite crucial, especially if you want to protect a back row. I know some of you Runic players don't want to get locked out, so DD Crow might be one of your best bets. But just keep in mind that if they do attempt to use the effect of any of the level 3s and the level 7s on board, it could just mean the level 10's coming out and you have only one opportunity to activate the DD Crow. So likely the better choice is going to be the Tenpai Biden Dragon target, or sometimes you can hit the Fadra target, but Fadra is going to be a lot harder because Fadra, well, is more or less damage steppable, so that makes it a lot harder. So removing the field spell is pretty key, but there's different kinds of timing for you to use Cosmic Cyclone to maximize the the effectiveness of something. So the card should be cleared when they're activating the effect to add a card to their hand, because if they do successfully add it, it's usually really bad news. However, if they go for the field spell, they don't activate anything, and they normal summon on Pydra and you attempt to use Pydra's effect, then you can use the negation effect on Pydra and then chain Cosmic. Then you can maximize that both cards actually did something, and definitely trade it off pretty well in terms of that. Now, when it comes to them just putting the card and then going to battle phase, then you should probably clear it at the start of battle phase. I don't think you should really let it linger, but you can also wait for it, say for Trident Dragion, to attempt to pop it. That's another pretty decent timing. It's really difficult to say when is the best timing for this, especially when it comes to like the battle phase version of this, because there's also a timing where, oh, they already summoned out the 10 and it's already too late. So if they ever go into activating a level 3 and the level 7's on the field already, then you should attempt a Cosmic Cyclone then, because you're not going to have an opportunity later on. So timing is pretty crucial. Another option to clear it off is of course using SP Little Knight when they activate the card, because the searching part is not an activated effect, it is an ignition like effect, so SP Little Knight does have timing to clear it out. Or if you have any sort of in-engine removal, just clear it out. If you have an in-engine MST, play it, play your I guess Runic Destruction, something like that. Another way to kind of beat the deck is to mess with the battle phase. That's right, they like skipping your turn with stuff like Shifter. Well, you can kind of do it back to them with monsters like Kiki and Nagashi, Fucho, or Leerless Assembled Nightingale. Both of these are pretty effective overall. I think Fucho is very good, because if you're a Snake Eye player, that means you have access to 2 level 1s and you can just make this card pass turn and not really worry about anything. However, you run into a problem if they do run cards like Pentastag or Santa Claus. More likely Pentastag is probably the way worse one, okay? If they Pentastag you, you're going to lose. That's actually one of the options in their extra deck, that if they summon a Pentastag and they just keep on synchro summoning into that zone, you're just gonna keep on taking all that damage for free and you're gonna get OTK'd. I'm just telling you straight up on that. On the other hand, there's also Leerless Assembled Nightingale, where you don't take battle damage and you can't be destroyed by battle. However, you're susceptible to Droplet. That's the only true issue there, but if they don't have Droplet, I guess you survive the entire turn and you get to kind of clap back later on. Alternatively, you can minimize the entire battling experience through, Baguska or Scareclaw Tryhard, push everything into defense position, and unless they have Droplet, they're not clearing this card. You can't die if there's no attack declaration. SP can also clear this, but that means there's no direct battle, so that's another thing about this. If they can't do any battle damage or they can't, attack directly, it's not going to be too rough. That's not too bad. And also Droplet can also clear this. And then there's also like really hard counter cards like Threatening Roar or, Thunder of Ruler. There's no battle or there's no battle phase. You can't lose. You just buy a turn. This is literally the turn skip against this deck. Hopefully you guys learned a thing or two about how to deal with Tenpai Dragon. Yes, trap cards are probably going to be the most effective at turn skipping them, especially with Threatening Roar, Thunder Ruler, even Waboku, where you can't take battle damage, your monster cannot be destroyed by that. It hurts a lot, and buying that extra turn back, they don't exactly have the best board building turn. They rely on the field spell so much, so you understand that, hey, clearing that field spell is very crucial in terms of board breaking, and knowing how to deal with the Hieratic Seal is also kind of important so that you don't just lose in the battle phase. Going to the battle phase blindly could end up getting yourself entirely black rosed, or worse yet, you develop your opponent's board along the way. But if you can find the micro interactions against them in the battle phase or turn them off during the main phase, then you're gonna have a pretty easy time dealing with Tenpai Dragon. Well, that's all I got for this video. If you guys have more to add, leave it down in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and I will see you all in the next one.